Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Victoria Online. If you're with us online this morning, please know that this Zoom service is a one-time only thing this Sunday because we are not able to have the auditorium at the Cook Street Village Activity Center because there is early voting going on there for our election. So we couldn't find another room that was large enough for our group. And we're online for that reason today, and this session is being recorded. And from this point forward, we'll continue as we did during the pandemic at one time, where I will be recording my talk every week, and it will go up sometime, usually on Monday afternoon, so that it's available on our website and on our Facebook page for those who've missed it on Sunday. But we are going to be wide open next Sunday with some protocols in place. If you haven't received the email yet, or if you're not receiving our emails at all, we'd like to know about that so that we can keep you informed. But also the new protocols are such that the Cook Street Village Activity Center is not allowing anyone in who does not have proof of vaccination. And so that affects us. And I know people will say, well, we're a religious service, and so, we're exempt from this. We would be exempt from this if we owned our own building or rented our own building. But in fact, we just rent this building for a period of time on Sundays. And as a result, we follow the protocols that are laid out by that building, just so that everybody understands where this comes from. But we will be welcoming you. We will require proof of vaccination at the door. And both Jim Scott and Dwight Whitson, will be at the door welcoming you. And after you have shown your proof of vaccination once, it will be recorded, so you don't have to do it every week when you come in. You will be recognized as you come in, and there will be really as little fuss over it as we can possibly make it. Also, people are asked to be masked and to maintain social distancing. So we know that, this is not forever, but it is for now. And the government has mandated that this will be until the end of January, which is a significant amount of time. But I just want you to know that. And for those of you who are able to come and want to come, we just welcome you with open arms and open heart. And for those of you who choose not to come because you're not fully vaccinated or for other reasons, then we honor that as well. We're all different, and we honor our differences and our individuality. So I just bless you all as we go into this morning, and I invite Reverend Jennifer to do our opening treatment. Jennifer?
Thank you, Carrie. Please join with me as I know the presence of God surrounds each and every one of us. Not only does God surround us, God is within us. As the promise was given, the kingdom of heaven is within you. So there is no distance between us and God. And we know the power of creation through the divine mind. And it expresses through us. It's our oneness unites us in the unfolding of this beautiful universe. With a grateful heart, I give a deep, soul-filled thank you, knowing as gratitude is expressed through us, is blessed upon everyone we meet. Thank you, God. And so it is.
And so it is. And Darlene Haynes is going to bless us with a musical contribution this morning as well. Darlene, thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Carrie. Blessing to the world. You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit and who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am, and all I do is a blessing to the world. We are the heart, we are the hands, we are the voice of spirit on earth, and who we are, and all we do is a blessing to the world, is a blessing to the world. We're a blessing to the world.
Thank you so much, Darlene. I was just thinking as you were singing what a blessing it would be if we could all look at each person in the world as a blessing, and release judgment and criticism and so on, which is part of what I'm going to be talking about today. My title is a no limit person. And as I was thinking about this, I was remembering a book that I read way back in the 60s. I can't even remember the title of it, but I remember reading it and being so puzzled by it because I had never read anything that was quite so unusual. And it was Carlos Castaneda. And there were a few things that I did wrap my mind around. And I was just doing a little bit of research because I hadn't read anything else but that one book that he'd written. And so I was doing a bit of research to see, what did people really think about what he wrote? And he reportedly, according to the book, was dealing with a shaman in Peru where he lived, and he was taking hallucinogenic drugs, or perhaps not drugs, but hallucinogenic mushrooms and things like that, which were giving him these spiritual insights, according to the book. And I think in one point, if memory serves me, he became a raven and flew off somewhere. And I was very, very young, and in my mind, it was something that I just couldn't quite comprehend. But the one thing that really stuck with me at the time was there was something he said that was, you can either make yourself miserable or you can make yourself happy, and it takes the same amount of work to do either. And I thought, isn't that the truth, though? We might think that it's harder work to be happy if we're feeling unhappy, but it took a lot of hard work to get to the unhappy place too. Only we're not really necessarily aware of that. We go through experiences, we go through mental attitudes and so on that take us to a place of sometimes being quite miserable. And so getting into that happy place is sometimes a big stretch for us. And yet it's something that we're all capable of doing. And I was really reminded of this yesterday. I was doing a funeral service for a woman named Helen. She was 87 years old when she passed, just a couple of weeks ago. And it was in the back garden of a home, and it was raining, and there were tents and umbrellas and so on everywhere. And we were all keeping as dry as we could. And there were 50 people there. All of them double vaccinated. And the interesting thing to me was that those 50 people were all related to Helen in some way. Her sister was there, her husband was there, her daughters, her son, her daughters-in-law, her sons-in-law, their children, their grandchildren, this huge number of people all related to this one person. And what intrigued me was that every one of them was such a happy person. You just see some people are just glowing, and they were glowing. And before the service, they were all kind of joking, and they were all saying, we've been talking to Helen all day, asking her to please shine some sunshine on us, and here we've got this rain. And then one of the people said, well, yes, but so many people are thinking that we really need the rain, that maybe they were the majority and they've ruled. And everybody just laughed, and they were having a good time. And the service began, and every single person who talked about Helen told the same kinds of stories. Here was this 87-year-old who left her husband when she was very young and had 3 small children, and she didn't know how she was going to support them. But she got a job as a clerk, and she borrowed money from her father to put a down payment on a house, and she repaid him, and it was the last time she ever borrowed money. And she raised these 3 children to adulthood and raised them with her own values and her great sense of humor. And every one of her children and her grandchildren who spoke said that Helen never once criticized anyone, not anyone, anywhere. And she was never judgmental about anyone, anywhere. And she never told anyone that they were wrong. She simply loved everyone. And instead of meeting a new person and saying, it's nice to meet you, she would say, it's nice to know you. And she had a radiant smile that would just light the person up. And so people wanted to be around her. They wanted to flock around her because they felt happy when they were with her. And her family said that she instilled these values in them by example. And they never once, ever heard her say an unkind word about anyone. In later years, she met the love of her life and married, and had 21 years with him. And they traveled the world together and did all kinds of wonderful things. But every Sunday, Helen had a family dinner. And typically there were 20 to 25 people there. And her family was laughing, saying, but she always cooked for 40. And at the end of the meal, she'd say, nobody ate anything. There's all this food left over. But they loved to go to her house. And I mean, I have friends who hate going to a family dinner on a Sunday because, they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know who's going to be upset about what. But here's a family that absolutely loved being together and loved being with their grandmother or their mother. And so as I was listening to that, I was just thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could all be like that? If we could all do what Helen did, basically, and choose to be happy. It's a conscious choice not to criticize other people and not to be in judgment of other people. And it takes some work maybe to get to that place, but how much happier we would be rather than carrying around that venom inside us. It's really a toxic kind of thing that we have inside us when we're doing that. And it isn't always easy to release it, but I was just thinking, as Castaneda said, it's work in either direction. So I think in my mind, I'd rather work at being happy than work at being miserable. And if that means releasing some things, then I'm prepared to do that. I was house sitting for Reverend Joanna and David while they were away, and I turned on the television set on Friday night, and on the OWN channel, Oprah Winfrey, there's two very old shows where she was interviewing Marianne Williamson. And I thought, oh, I have to watch this. 2 people that I really, really admire. And they were both talking about happiness and talking about how you are a lighter being and a higher being. And Marianne Williamson said, every morning when I wake up, I just say to God, lift me to a higher place so that I may better express you as me. And I thought, isn't that a wonderful awakening prayer? Lift me to a higher place. We don't want to go down. We don't want to lower ourselves. Just in this moment, remembering Michelle Obama, who said, when they go low, we go high. Going high, going to a higher place, connecting with God, with Spirit, is just so much more valuable in my mind. Ernest Holmes wrote about happiness, and I'm going to read you a paragraph about something that he wrote. He said, there is a deep pool of peace inside each of us. And when darkness threatens, we should dive into that pool. When darkness threatens, we should dive into that pool. It is there that we find the pattern of perfection that has never been touched by disease or misfortune. It's that pure love, pure God, of which we are made. So think about that. Inside each of us is divine perfection. It's at our core, but we perhaps sometimes cover it up. And he said the mind must reach a place where it no longer remembers the past with anxiety or looks into the future with uncertainty. So it no longer remembers the past with anxiety or looks to the future with uncertainty. And as I was reading that the other night, what I saw in my mind was this big room in a house where a hoarder lived. And there's, piles of stuff all over the place. Some good stuff, some garbage, and some things that you couldn't determine what they were. And to me, releasing that anxiety over the past or concern about the future was like, just taking a plow and plowing all of that stuff out of that room, clearing it completely, cleaning it completely. Are we hoarding ideas that are hurting us, that are creating toxicity inside us, that are cluttering our consciousness, that are preventing us from being close to this divine presence? Excuse me. Wayne Dyer said, that happiness is an inner concept, and that, we all have a desire to have it. But the thing is that, if we're not awake, if we're not self-aware, that we're probably not going to find it. We're still going to, be back in a place of anxiety and criticism and judgment and so on. But when we can be in a place of happiness, then we bring happiness to all that we meet in the same way that Helen did. And I think the important thing is that we need to remember that, if we're not always there, that if we can be willing to be there. I am willing to be happy. I am willing to release my ideas about someone else being wrong and me being right. I am willing to, what's the expression? Would rather be right or happy. Let us allow others to be who they are, and let us be our own authentic selves, our God selves, living in a higher realm, and not lowering ourselves to a lower energy than we might already have. There's something that can be fomenting inside us, and that's what we need to get rid of. And the thing to remember is that no one can make us unhappy, absolutely no one, without our participation and without our consent. So think about that. That means that it's actually a choice. We can choose to participate in it. We can choose to give our consent or not. And years ago, I remember Dr. Dyer in a talk holding up an orange and cutting it in half and squeezing it, saying, what comes out of an orange when you squeeze it? Well, of course, orange juice comes out of it. And so then he said, so if you are squeezed or pressed with anxiety or distrust or betrayal, whatever it is that you happen to be thinking about, when you get squeezed, what comes out of you? Is it the innocence, the purity of God that comes out? Or is it anger and mistrust? Is it a lower vibration that comes out? And how does that make other people feel? Again, no one can depress us or make us anxious or make us angry unless that's the juice that's inside us. So we need to mop up the juice. We need to find a way that we can do that is going to increase our happiness, increase our vibration, and especially at this time in our history when we have so much around us that can remind us that things are not easy, that things are maybe not good, that there are difficult things out there, there's evil out there, there's, all kinds of stuff going on that we don't like. This is not a planet that is expressing pure love for everyone. But it starts with each one of us. It starts within our own hearts, within our own minds, to be in that place, to change the way that we feel about things. How do we do this? Is a question as well. Marianne Williamson said, no matter what, we need to respond with the truth of who we are. So if we take a moment to think, and I can remember years ago saying, so what would Jesus do? Or what would God do? What would Buddha do? What would Muhammad do? If we ask ourselves those questions, as we're looking at those great teachers from the past, what can we learn from them about how we are going to respond to things in this lifetime? And it's about responding with love and with human kindness and acceptance. Those are the things that actually set us free. We all have this light within us. Are we burying it under a bushel, or is it shining? Think about this light within as being a candle that's been lit, and it's burning brightly. And you take that candle outside, and the wind is blowing, and it starts to flicker, and then it goes out. We're surrounded by things every day that could be those outside forces that make our inner candles flicker, that make our lights go out. And so keeping that candle bright and strong is what puts us in a higher place in our lives. And getting to my title today, a long way to getting to my title today about being a no-limit person. Wayne Dyer wrote that there are three kinds of people. The first are the, what Reverend Jennifer calls the ain't it awful people, where they're filled with anxiety and pain and stress and basically focused on everything that is going wrong. Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong. And the second kind of person is not operating at the highest level, is not walking around always in pain and always in judgment and always in criticism and so on. But they're not really in a higher place either. It's kind of like, it's not quite flatlining. There are ups and downs. How are you doing today? Pretty good. Having a good day. Not so. We don't know what to predict. That is going to come out of us sometimes or out of other people as well. But the third kind of person that he talks about is the no-limit person. And he said psychologists have said throughout many years now that the no-limit person is basically a chosen one. It's a person who's everything just goes perfectly for them in their lives. They don't have to worry about anything. Everything ahead of them just unfolds. Their lives are wonderful in every way, and that's the way that we see them. And he said, but that's not true. He said, they're not the chosen ones. He said, we are all the chosen ones. We all have that ability inside us to be moving forward to a higher vibration all the time. It is there. That is the God stuff within. And so we must be willing to drop our need to express negative emotions and give up anger and allow others who have different ideas to have their different ideas, and not to be critical and not to be judgmental of that. Again, it's a tall order. And how do we do those things? In the last couple of years, I was counting this morning, 5 people in my life, one way or another, one a very good friend, and the others casual friends. who started sending about conspiracy stuff. You know, they got all their news from the internet, from things that people sent them, emails people sent them, and they just went down the rabbit hole. And I was getting really weird stuff. And so I systematically started to say to people, you know, I lovingly ask you to kindly not send me these things. And one friend, good friend, responded and said, okay, you just want love and light. And I said, yeah, that's my preference. I just want love and light. And she has respected that, and we stay in touch. And we don't talk about any of the wild stuff that, you know, that she had been saying. The last well, in my mind, crazy thing that I got was someone told me that that Oprah Winfrey and Lady Gaga had been arrested and sent to Guantanamo Bay. And then next in line were the Clintons, the Obamas, and the Bidens. And, and I looked at that and I laughed and I thought, well, gee, maybe I want to go too. I mean, what interesting people to hang out with. Anyway, and I sent her an email back and I said, you know, I would really appreciate it if you would not send me these things. You know, I'm just not interested in them. It's amazing how when people start listening to one sinister bit of information, how they can be led to another and another and another without even realizing it. And I mean, I'm talking about people who are pretty bright people. They're not, you know, they're not ignorant people, but they have bought into these stories. And one friend, not a super close friend, that I emailed and said, please don't send me these things. He responded and he said, okay, I've taken you off my email list, but I hope that we can be friends again one day. And I emailed him back and I said, we can still be friends. We don't have to agree with one another to be friends. I just don't want to read that negative stuff that what to me is negative stuff that's coming out. I don't need to be warned about things that I don't really believe are happening. So, you know, for me, that's a small way for me, by just rejecting things that I find to be less than spiritual and less than nurturing for my soul, and to ask people to honor that. And I found that I haven't made it, well, I don't think I've made any enemies as a result of it, but I feel a lot better not getting that stuff. And I mean, I had been deleting things for a long time. I don't even have to delete them anymore because I'm not getting them. So, you know, it's kind of on the way to being a no limit person. It doesn't mean, I mean, I'm certainly not there 100%. You know, I have my human moments as well. And the thing is that being being a no limit person does not mean that we condone atrocities. It doesn't mean that we just go around with a smile on our faces, that we're Pollyannas and say everything is beautiful, when we see evidence around us all the time that things are not beautiful. But it is our choice about whether or not we're going to take a deep dive and get depressed by what we see, or whether we're going to maintain happiness, whether we're going to look at those things and turn to prayer and just say, God, lift me up. And while you lift me up, lift everyone else up as well. You know, let us move into a higher consciousness, into a higher way of being. Let us move into the God selves that we are. Let us remember the truth of who we are, that we're spirit having a human experience, and that nothing is going to change that. And so I am going to respond as closely as I can to spirit at any moment of any day. There's a sacredness to enlightened people. I don't pretend to be an enlightened person. I've got a long way to go. But I've met a few people that I feel are pretty close to it. And there is something sacred about them. You kind of want to hang out with them, want to touch them, want to just sit at their feet almost, because of what they have to share. They're way beyond all the nasty stuff, and they're talking about all of the wonderful things in their lives and in the lives of other people. and how we can get there. The great teachers, the great avatars. And I was thinking about this, and thinking about the ability of people to change. Just last night, an image of my late mother came to mind. She passed many years ago. She was a very negative person. She was always depressed. She was always critical and judgmental and racially biased. And used to make me crazy. Anyway, she spent her later years in a nursing home, and she became happier there. And the thing is that people there started to show her love. A lot of people, not just a few. And one day I took her out for lunch, and when I was about to take her home, I asked her if there was anything else she needed to do. And she said, oh, yes, I have to buy a doll for little Junie. And I said, oh, who's Junie? And she said, oh, Junie's a little girl at the nursing home. And every morning she comes in and wakes me up and gives me a hug. And I said, oh, that's so sweet. And I thought, I didn't see any children there. But anyway, we went and bought a doll, and we went back to the nursing home, and Mom sought out little Junie. Well, little Junie was about 4'8", probably about 50 years old, had Down syndrome. And if you know people with Down syndrome, you know that they're just buckets of love. And Junie just came running up to my mom and hugged her and held on to her. And I realized how much my mother really needed that all the time. And she loved Junie. And I'm telling you, she would not have given the time of day to someone like Junie in most of the years that I knew her. But she changed. And that same day, we were standing in a great open room at the nursing home, and there was a beautiful quilt hanging on the wall that my mother had made. And the Calgary Stampede was just over, and she had won first prize with her quilt at the exhibition at the Stampede. And it had a blue ribbon on it. And another woman walked past my mother and looked at it and said, must not have been much competition. Now, that would have been enough to set my mother off for a month at least, maybe forever. And instead, she just looked at the woman, and then she looked at me and she said, she must not be a very happy person. Well, I nearly fell over. This was not the woman that I grew up with. And I looked and I thought, how wonderful that as other people showed her more love and more tolerance than she had experienced in her life, she became more loving and more understanding. And, was really looking at this other woman and saying, she must not be very happy. And it wasn't a criticism, it was an observation. And I thought, wow, it's never too late. It's absolutely never too late for us to make that change. I remember reading once, the only difference between a weed and a flower is judgment. And isn't that the truth? Remember when some little one brought you a bouquet of dandelions and gave them to you with so much love that your heart just opened up wide with warmth, and those dandelions were the most beautiful bouquet you'd ever had. I remember many of those when my girls were little. It's all about judgment, the only difference between a flower and a weed. Marianne and Oprah suggested that we all need to be peacemakers who focus on love, realizing that we are all of the one Father, Mother, God. And Marianne suggested that the way that we can make a big difference in the world starting right this moment is to think of one person that we're holding a grudge against for some reason, and to choose to forgive that one person. And if we all did that, the level of loving power that we would be extending to the world would be beyond anything that we could imagine. Just think about it. If we each chose to forgive one person, and maybe in another week or two, another person. And how do we do that? Well, many, many years ago, I think it was 1988, I was in Maui for 3 months. I had a sabbatical there, which was wonderful. And I went to Maui Community College and took some classes. And one of the classes was on forgiveness. because I knew that I had somebody that I needed to forgive. And the facilitator was wonderful. And what I learned that helped me the most was, she said, sit and meditate a bit and remember a time when you felt incredible love for someone. And that was really easy for me. It was when my second daughter was born, and I was awake when as she was being born, and she was placed into my arms, and she had a cleft lip and a cleft palate. And the doctor said, before she was even fully wrapped up and so on, he said, the baby has a cleft lip. And I said, how's her palate? And he said, well, he said, just wait a minute till we finish up with you and we'll have a look. And she was crying, and I said, can I hold her? And he said, well, I can't think of a reason why not. Now, in those days in Calgary, we were not allowed to hold our babies in the delivery room. They were brought to us in our rooms. But he broke the rules, and a nurse placed Kendall in my arms. And whew, it still chokes me up. I was the mother lion. I loved her so much. And I looked at her and I said to her, I will never, ever let anyone hurt you. Well, of course, that's a promise that a mother can't keep. But the love that I felt was so profound. It was so pure. And it was absolutely unconditional in every way. And so when I was in Maui, Kendall, meanwhile, had extraordinary surgery, probably the best surgeon in the world at the time, but we didn't know that. She has no scars. She has no speech impediment. We were so blessed. But I've used that technique. And it, again, it's not always easy, but if you sit in meditation and you feel that love and then call in the image of the person that you need to forgive and transfer that love to them. It's really hard to keep hating or to keep being critical when you're just feeling so much love. And yes, we may struggle with it, but again, we need to be willing to move into that space. Just willing for a moment even to feel love for that person and to figure out what it is that made them like that. As my late mother said, she must not be a very happy person. What is it that makes people unhappy? What is it that makes them the way that they are? How can we understand them better? I've said a few times that for me, one of the greatest ways for forgiveness, especially if something happens to me right here and right now, and I need to do something about it, I will go home and sit in a chair and pray and meditate. And I expressed a time when it took me 3.5 hours. I had said, if I have to sit in this chair all night and pray, then that's what I'm going to do, because I will not carry this around with me. And I was really angry. And it took 3.5 hours. And basically, I said the same thing over and over again. And it was love this person through me and love me through him. So let's say the person's name was Michael. Love Michael through me and love me through Michael. Over and over and over again. Just taking a deep breath and saying it over and over again. And after 3.5 hours, I felt my heart open up wide. It expanded with so much love. And it just washed away any feelings that I had of anger with him. And I also told the story that about a year later, I was in a grocery store and somebody came up, put arms around me and gave me a hug. And I turned around and it was Michael. He was 18 years old. And he just said, Carrie, it's so good to see you. I've missed you. And it was just a loving experience. Wasn't me. There's a higher power at work, always at work, always ready to do our bidding. If we could but remember that. We don't need to be attached to our anger, attached to our hurt, attached to our pain, attached to our upset with what somebody else said or did, all the external things. The orange has pure orange juice. You know, let the pure juice in us be the juice of love and compassion and wisdom. Let us give that to the world. And when we wake up in the morning, dear God, lift me up and show me what I need to do today to be the love that you have put inside me. We are all love. We are all powerful at our core. We are all no limit people at our core. We just need to start acting that way. And so it is. And so I thank you for being with us today. And if you wish to turn on your video again, please do so. You can turn on your audio as well if you like. This is the time, of course, in our service where we typically do our offering and bless our offering. And if you would like to contribute today, if you're not attending our center on a regular basis, but you'd like to make a contribution, you can do that through e-transfer to donate@csl.org. And or you can go to the website and there's a donate button there which takes you to PayPal. And you can either use PayPal or a credit card to do that. There were some issues with our website, and the providers have repaired that, and it is now we're now working again, just to let you know that. And I bless you all, and truly want you to know that you are loved and supported no matter where you are in your life, whatever you're going through. And if you feel the need for prayer, if you need some help with this along the way, simply send me an email and I will send it to our prayer team. And we will be so blessed and so privileged to hold you in prayer in the coming week or in the weeks ahead to give you the support that you require. So here and now, I just thank you all for being here, and I bless you all. And let us just take a moment to go into prayer as we wind things up today, knowing that there is one God, and that God is your God and my God. That God is perfect. That God is each of our lives in expression, here and now, ever present, always there. We might step away from it, but it never steps away from us. And so I call on this intelligence right here and right now. Lift us up to a higher place than we have ever been before, a higher place so that we do not look down on anyone or anything, but instead we spread love and joy and light and gratitude wherever we go. In this week ahead, let this be our mantra. I am love in expression. I am God in expression. That perfection is indwelling in me, and I am lifted up into the higher realms, into a higher vibration, and my love goes out to everyone in this world. And that power, that love, is making a difference, and you are making a difference now. Know that you are loved, and you are love itself, and so it is. Have an absolutely wonderful week ahead, everyone. I look forward to seeing you all next week at the center if you are able to be with us, and look forward to chatting with you and perhaps some visits with those of you who are not able to come in person. God bless you all. Bye for now.